Do you find yourself questioning whether or not the avoidant in your life will ever change? Because sometimes staying in a really close relationship dynamic can feel like fighting a losing battle. And if you don't know when it's time to actually walk away, you risk losing yourself in the process of staying. So, what I'm going to take you through is a 3-step process to help you determine whether or not this person is worth investing in or whether it's time to seriously walk away. And at the end of this video, I'm also going to add into there some things to look for specifically, 4 or 5 major things specifically to look for to see if the avoidant is actually healing, changing, and growing. And that's going to be right at the end of this video. And I'm curious, before we even start, let me know in the comments what you think the most important sign is, but whether or not a dismissive avoidant is going to change. Also, if you're new to this channel, my name is Thais, and if you really enjoyed today's content, please consider liking the video, sharing the video with somebody who could benefit, and subscribing to this channel so you don't miss any of our daily content. So I want to take you through 3 things or 3 major steps to evaluate whether this is the right relationship dynamic for you to stay in or whether or not it's actually time to walk away. I've shared this on this channel before, but I say this all the time. When I was working in private practice and seeing client after client after client, and for a large part of that entire time working with couples, the factors to me that indicated whether or not a relationship was likely to work, believe it or not, was not what their attachment style is, was not how much trauma they had in their past. It was this one major thing, and I'm going to take through how to evaluate this. This one major thing was, are they willing to do the work? Are they willing to show up and put the effort into the tools that I am going to give? Because a lot of times a couple would come in together and one person's dragging the other person in, and that one person who's being dragged in is just showing up to check something off the list. Oh, I did it. I attended therapy. I attended counseling or coaching. Like it wasn't, I have a relationship to being here and I'm going to try to put in and utilize these tools. So if somebody's not willing to work on the relationship with you, number one, it's going to be really hard to build momentum. But I'm going to tell you how to find out if they're willing to or not. And 2 other steps you can take here to make this the best scenario possible for you, no matter what your situation currently is. So you need to determine, is this person willing to do the work? Well, how do we do that? Step 1, you set a deadline of time that you are going to invest in the relationship. And at the end of the deadline, you are going to make a commitment to yourself to walk away. Now, what is this deadline? How do we evaluate what deadline we pick? Well, number one, it depends on the level of investment of the relationship you actually have. So if you're married with 3 children and a mortgage and you've been together for 12 years, you might say, I'm going to work really hard on this relationship for 1 year or 6 months. If you've been dating somebody for 6 months, you may say, I'm going to work really hard on this relationship for 1 month or 6 weeks, right? So you have to have something relative to your level of investment. Once you've decided what that deadline period of time is that you're going to invest, you are then going to do everything you can. And I'm going to tell you these 3 major things to focus on to try to move the needle in the relationship. Now, a lot of people here go, Thais, but that person's an avoidant and don't bother wasting your time. One of the most interesting things is that when people invest with the right tools and they show up for their side of the road, a lot of times the other partner changes. Now, of course, this is what I've seen firsthand in sessions over and over again. What I love about this idea is that I would often see people not do this, not set the deadline, not pour into the relationship. And then what happens is when we get to step 3 here, and I'm going to circle back about how to do these steps a little better, but like in a little more detail. But if somebody so what I say is set your deadline, pour in and do the work on the relationship, and then you're positioned for a win-win. Because at worst case scenario, you do all the work, you grow because you're practicing communicating differently, having boundaries, learning to self-soothe, learning to communicate your needs better and more effectively so they can get heard, learning to work through your core wounds and relationship fears. You're doing that work. And either at the end, if the person doesn't do that work with you, it is so clear that they're not the right fit for you. And because you've been doing your inner work, you've now grown in your self-esteem, your self-worth, and you don't want to stick around in a relationship where somebody's not investing back. So at worst, you grow, you heal, and you realize with the utmost clarity and the utmost certainty that, okay, this isn't the right relationship for me. And so when you walk away, it's not so hard to walk away. Your healing process is faster. walking away and actually healing from the breakup is much easier. Or best case scenario, which is your other side of the win-win, is you end up in a situation where you've poured into the relationship, you've done this work, and somebody is inspired by the work that you're doing and how you're showing up. So they jump on board with you. Okay, so what do we do? So these three overarching themes, and I'm going to break them down in a little more detail so you have things you can work on. Number one, you pick a deadline. Remember, that has to be relative to your level of investment. Number two, you then want to ask yourself, well, what are the big things I need to work on in this relationship? Those end up being things like rewiring your core wounds, the fear of abandonment or being alone, or the fear of being betrayed or trapped. These types of things, you want to be able to work through those things. So you're not carrying, they're honestly like your relationship baggage. And basically every insecure attachment style has them. You don't want to be carrying your past into your present over and over and over again. So you make sure in this particular case, you work through those triggers and fears. We've got lots of free tools on this channel for how to do that. And if you want a free course that you can check out fully for free, you can go into your attachment style healing course, and it's fully for free just for a limited time. And you can actually keep one of the other courses in there about relationship needs for life. So I'll put a free link to that down below. But if you rewire those fears, the fear of abandonment, the fear of betrayal, the fear of being alone or rejected, like these big fears that you're not born with, they get conditioned into you, and we can actually recondition them quite easily, by the way, based on neuroscience. So we rewire those things. We learn what our needs are in relationships and how to communicate them in a way that the dismissive avoidant will actually hear. Okay, there's lots of good ways to do that. We talk about that in the channel. That's also in the course. We talk about this a lot on the channel, how to communicate using positive framing. I'm not going to go into all of that right now, but you learn to communicate. You learn to self-soothe by meeting your own needs so that if somebody's not able to show up, you're still okay. It doesn't mean that like you don't want anybody else to meet your needs ever. It just means that you're a master of both sides. I can meet my needs and I can self-regulate, and I can lean on people too and communicate them healthily to others. So you work on your fears, you work on meeting your own needs and self-soothing, you work on regulating your nervous system a little bit and communicating your needs and boundaries. You work on those four major things, you're going to heal tremendously. You're going to be in the best place of your life, no matter what the relationship looks like in front of you. And you're going to have the self-worth and the standards that you're able to actually execute on to be like, okay, if this person's not investing in me and they're not willing to do the work, I'm actually okay to walk away. So we do that within that deadline period of time. It's a win for you as a person, and it's a win for your clarity about whether to stay or go in the relationship. At the end of the deadline, you're going to see one of two things. Either the needle moved so much because you were doing the work, you led by example, the person joined on with you, and now you're actually growing together instead of growing apart, and it's incredible. Or the person literally didn't do anything at all. And you're going to see it's very black and white with people at this point. The needle either moves tremendously or the needle doesn't move at all. And now your answer about staying or going is so crystal clear that now you can move into a scenario where you're like, okay, this isn't for me. I'm okay with it. Or you're like, wow, we grew together so much. We communicate properly now. We're better at regulating individually and together. We know each other's needs and we have dialogues about them. And we're so much closer as a result by tenfold because we know how to do these things together. And so if you lead by example, because you know your needs and you're doing the work, you've worked through your triggers so you're not triggered, and that helps you communicate more effectively. You use the communication tools to actually get heard by an avoidant. Well, now all of a sudden, you're away to the races, and nothing can stop you if that's the pillar you landed in. And so you're in a win-win scenario. But you need to see, because this is the largest thing determining whether or not the relationship will work. When you work, does the person join you? And to me, that is the bottom rung of the ladder, the most important question you can ask yourself when it comes to the relationship dynamic. And it's the best case scenario for you, no matter what happens in the external world, because you have the control to choose how you're going to show up in your internal world. And that either betters things externally with somebody else, or you're just bettering yourself. So that to me is the biggest signpost of whether or not you should leave a relationship, and the biggest thing to look for in regards to does an avoidant change. And by the way, some things you would look for are did the avoidant also start communicating more healthily about their needs? Are they more vulnerable with you? Are they making more compromises with you in the relationship? Are you finding that there's a healthier dynamic of reciprocity in the relationship, where they're giving into the relationship as much as they're receiving from the relationship? Are you seeing these things take shape as this person showing up for your needs and making an effort? And you'd be surprised at just how often this does happen when we lead by example. But it's going to be up to you in your individual situation to really vet, to really see how much that needle moves, by the end of your deadline. So that's it for today. I hope this gives you a lot of clarity and insight and support. Ask me any questions you have down below. And thank you so much for stopping by and for watching.